Cthulhu Fatagen. Hey everyone, no, way too hot. All right guys, so today I'm going to be teaching everyone how to play Cthulhu Wars. So I do a lot of Cthulhu War videos. This video is primarily meant for people who are new to the game, and it's going to give you kind of a quick once-over. Definitely you should read the rule book, but I know not everybody likes to, and this is not going to teach people how to win. I have a bunch of other videos about that, so I'll link to that below in the show notes or at the end. All right, great. Let's just get started. So first of all, you're going to choose how many players you're going to play with. The game supports out of the box 3 to 5 players. If you've bought various expansions and things, you can play with up to 8 players. In this case, I have the core 3 to 5 player boards, and I've decided to set it up for 4 players. In that case, I have to take one side that says 3 players, and I have to take the other side that says 5 players. And I put those together, and that's the 4-player board. If you were going to play with 3, they'd both be 3. If you're going to be both, 5, they'd both be 5. That, so on. You let everyone choose their factions, however you want to decide it, Rochambeau, whatever, and you choose your factions. In this case, I'm playing Great Cthulhu. After you've chosen your factions, you give everybody their board, and so it's gonna be a bunch of monsters, it's gonna be a board, it's gonna be spell books. Ideally, give them some sort of turn sequence card. I do have a link down below in the show notes that gives you a link to a more expanded card that I really recommend for new players. You can print that out. It's from BGG. Somebody nice over there created one. It's not mine. Okay, so everyone has their board. Let's talk about the boards themselves. Every faction is very different in Cthulhu Wars. And generally, Sandy Petersen follows kind of a rule of exception. You define the core rules, and then each asymmetric faction breaks those rules in some way. So the first thing you want to look at is the unique ability on the board. In Great Cthulhu's example, you have Immortal. It's an ongoing ability, which basically means it kind of goes off whenever it's appropriate. And it says, once Cthulhu has awakened, he costs only 4 power each additional time he is awakened. Whenever you awaken any Great Old One, gain 1 Elder Sign. So his ability is that Cthulhu gets cheaper once you've awakened him successfully 1 time. So that's important. You're going to want to leverage these abilities as much as possible. The board also lists 3 types of units: cultists, monsters, and Great Old Ones. So there is a type of unit and there is a unit themselves. So in my group, we often call these guys cultists. They are cultists, but technically this is an acolyte. There are other types of cultists, so you want to pay attention to that. There are also various types of monsters. The monsters are all different for each faction. For Cthulhu, he has deep ones, which are like little frog guys. He has shoggoths, which are like squid things with eyes and mouths and stuff like that. And there are starspawn. So each of these units have different number of combat dice, they have different power costs, and they have different special abilities. The Great Old Ones, for Cthulhu, he has 1, just himself, Cthulhu, but other factions may have 1, 2, or even none. They have a cost, they have a number of combat dice. For Great Old Ones, the combat dice are often calculated. Then they have the rules on how to awaken them. Great Old Ones aren't just simple monsters you can summon. You have to do something specific. In this case, Great Cthulhu says there must be a gate in Great Cthulhu's starting area. And it says specifically they can be abandoned or enemy controlled. There are no implied rules in Cthulhu Wars. They're very specific. He's just being kind to you because presumably you might be a new player. This gate could be controlled by someone else. You can still awaken Cthulhu. What you can't do is you cannot awaken Cthulhu if somehow that gate goes away. So you must have a gate in the area with the symbol, and in the starting area. So in this case, it's R'lyeh, but if you use other maps, other worlds, R'lyeh might not be on those worlds. Okay, but there will always be a Cthulhu faction. And of course, just like monsters, Great Old Ones often have special abilities. For Cthulhu, he has an ability called Devour, and it says it's a pre-battle ability. Pay attention to when you can use the abilities, as it's very important in determining your strategies. Okay, the faction board also has 6 spellbook requirements. So each of these spots has a requirement that you must do something, and when you do that thing, then you can awaken one of your spellbooks. The core spellbooks have different special abilities. They're often very crucial to your faction's strategy to win. You do something and you put the spellbook out. You do something else, you put a spellbook out. You choose whatever spellbook you want from your available list. And once you've unlocked 6, then you have completed all of your spellbooks. You cannot win the game if you have not awakened all 6, or if you've not unlocked all 6 spellbooks. So you may win in terms of, you may have the most doom points, and that's how you determine who wins, but you're not eligible to win if you did not awaken all 6 spellbooks. So let's talk about ending the game. How does the game end? The game ends when either a player has hit 30 on the doom track, or when the ritual track hits instant death. So one of the other setups that you have to do is, based off the number of players, you choose a ritual track, you put your marker on the lowest. In this case, I have H.P. Lovecraft set to 5. You put on the doom track a glyph for each faction. So I have the 4 core factions. They're all at 0. And so the game ends at 30 doom or instant death on the track. And then once the game triggers the end, you calculate the doom points. Now, you don't just use what's on the doom track. So you also accumulate elder signs. The elder signs are all between 1 and 3, and you generally keep them secret. Each faction will have different ways of earning them. Some factions earn more than others, and often the player who triggers the end of the game does not actually win the game. So that's important to keep in mind. All right, so you have your board, you know how to end the game, you know how to win the game, which is doom points. You want doom points. How do you play? How do you actually summon monsters, that kind of stuff? Great. Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to follow the game setup. In this case, Cthulhu says 8 power. You put your marker on 8. It says 6 acolytes. Put out 6 acolytes. A controlled gate, and you are then ready to start. The first player is listed in the rulebook. Great Cthulhu is always the first player, but sometimes nobody's playing him. If nobody plays Great Cthulhu, then you look in the book and whoever is the first player based off that order is the first player. Might be Crawling Chaos, might be Opener the Way, might be Cho-Cho, might be anybody. The first player gets this token and gets to choose whether they are clockwise or counterclockwise in terms of gameplay. Each round, the determined first player phase is going to be repeated. It's going to be based off of the units with the factions with the most power. They're going to get this token and they're going to get to choose clockwise or counterclockwise. So this is going to change throughout the game. After the first player phase is the doom phase. The first round, you're going to skip the doom phase. All right, next is the action phase. In the action phase, each player is going to take 1 limited action and any number of unlimited actions, and then go to the next player. You're going to keep rotating in the turn order that's determined by the first player. And they're going to keep doing that until they either hit 0 power or they pass. be careful. If you pass, you set your power, your remaining power, to 0, and you're now out of the turn rotation. You can take no actions unless something somehow gives you more power again. Okay, so there are 7 standard actions, and then there is a large variety of other actions that exist in like different spell books, different monsters, different great old ones. There's all kinds of different other actions. We're only going to go over these 7 common actions. Okay, so 1, you can move. For your move action, you can spend 1 power per unit you want to move and move 1 space. Some factions can move more than 1 space. Some factions can move additional units for free. This is a very asymmetric game. Everybody can kind of do different things. All right, so moving to cultists would cost 2 power. You can summon a gate in a space that does not already have a gate. That costs 3 power. As an unlimited action, you can take control of a uncontrolled gate, or you can relinquish control of a gate. You can, if you have a controlled gate, you can summon a monster. So you are limited to the monsters on your board or that you have somehow gained control of. And for the cost listed, in this case 1, you can summon a monster. If somehow one of your cultists dies or otherwise ends up off the board and is not captured by somebody else, you can spend 1 power to recruit a cultist anywhere that you have a unit. So if you move somebody north, say North America, you can spend 1 power, recruit a cultist. Great. Once you have a cultist there, of course, then you could go back and you could summon a gate. Once you have a gate, you can summon more monsters. All right. The other thing you can do is you can awaken a Great Old One. Now, every Great Old One has their own rules on how to awaken them. But if you follow the rules listed on your faction board, then you can summon a Great Old One. All right. Now, cultists are very vulnerable to other factions. So while we've been playing, of course, the other factions haven't been alone. And what they can do is another common action is the capture cultist ability. So let's see what it looks like when just a ghoul is with a cultist. Well, for 1 power, the ghoul can capture a lone cultist. At that point, the cultist goes on their board, and now I can no longer recruit that cultist. That cultist is unavailable to me, and that is a huge detriment. At the next gather power phase, Black Goat is going to have to give me back that cultist, but they're going to get 1 power in exchange for it. So that's what happens if you just have a cultist there. Now, if a monster is in the same space as your lone cultist, now you cannot do a capture cultist action because a monster of the same faction protects from other monsters being able to capture them. Now, just kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, there's a pecking order and each of these counters the other. So Great Old Ones can capture cultists even if a monster is there. I almost never see someone do this. So this is very important to keep in mind. The capture cultist action, the cultist has no protection from Great Old Ones. So if a monster's here, you can still capture him, done. Okay, if you have a Great Old One there, your cultists are now safe from being captured. So again, this is very important that you can bypass monster protection if you're using your Great Old One. All right. Now the last common action is the battle action. The battles, they are important But it is important. Battles in and of themselves do not give you doom points normally. And because they do not normally give you doom points, they do not actually help you to win. But battles are going to happen. As a standard action, you can initiate a battle. Now, if you've unlocked all 6 of your spell books, the battle action becomes unlimited. At that point, you can do as many battles as you can afford, 1 power each. All right, all in the same round. Okay, so for 1 power, I initiate a battle. Let's get that ghoul out of there. He's gonna hang out at home. Let's get a cultist in here. This is just a little bit more interesting. So let's get this deep one out. Cthulhu's all alone. That's how he rolls. All right. So for 1 power, I initiate the battle. There's 3 phases to a battle: pre-battle, battle, and post-battle. During the pre-battle action, you look at all of your cards and you activate any pre-battle actions you choose to. In this case, Cthulhu can devour a opposing unit. Oh, you know what? Let's get a fungi. All right. So devour. Black Goat has to choose a unit to be devoured. Cthulhu doesn't get to choose. He does get to force them to choose someone, but he doesn't get to choose who they force. All right, whatever. So Black Goat's going to sacrifice the fungi. That's done with the pre-battle. Battle phase, you take the number of dice. Great Cthulhu has 6 battle dice. And Shub-Niggurath, she's a little bit more interesting. Her battle dice equals the number of cultists you have on the board, as well as the number of controlled gates. So 6 cultists plus 1 for the gate. So she has 7 dice to Cthulhu's 6. You then roll the dice during the battle phase. And it's actually not bad, to be fair. So you look at all of your kills. The kills are the Cthulhu skull symbols. The pains are the claws. So we got 1 kill on each side, and we got 1 pain on Shub-Niggurath's side. All right, now we go into the post-battle phase. The post-battle is basically simultaneously performed. So it doesn't matter who gets killed when. You get to do all post-battle actions that are applicable. In this case, Shub-Niggurath, Black Goat, has an ability to bring in ghouls from anywhere on the board. So she's going to bring in a ghoul because the ghoul might be able to take some hits. All right. Then what has to happen is we look, and first you have to handle the kills. So Cthulhu got a kill, which means Black Goat has to choose someone to die. She chooses the ghoul. Happens a lot. Cthulhu has to choose someone to die. He could choose the cultist or himself. Most of the time, you don't sacrifice the Great Old One. For Cthulhu, it's cheap for him to replace Cthulhu, but I don't ever recommend in this scenario sacrificing Cthulhu, because then Black Goat would just capture the cultist on her next turn anyway, so it doesn't make any sense. So cultist dies. It's always better for a cultist to die than the cultist to be captured. Then Shub-Niggurath, she has a bunch of pains, and Black Goat has a pain. So a pain forces you to retreat. You can retreat to any space that does not have a unit of the opposing faction. And if there is nowhere for you to retreat to, then that unit gets killed instead. So 1 pain, and Cthulhu retreats back to South America. Cthulhu had 3 pains, so Black Goat has to retreat 2 units, because she only has 2 units. And there we go. And that's the completed battle. Nobody left in South Atlantic. Again, battles are important, but battles are not how you win. It's always doom points. Okay, so that is all of your common actions. Now let's move on to the next turn. Presumably everybody spent all their power, everybody did all their things. and you are now in the gather power phase. So in the gather power phase, you get 1 power per cultist on the board. In this case, Cthulhu has 5. Then you gain 2 power for every gate that you control. In this case, it'd be 4. So we're up to 9 power. You then everybody gains 1 power per uncontrolled gate. So if there was a gate here, then everybody would get 1 power. So pushing somebody off of a gate can be advantageous because everybody gets 1 power for that gate. Okay. If you have any cultists that you captured, then you get 1 power for that, and you give the cultist back. And then after all of that, the calculations, if anybody has less than half of the faction with the most power, you just increase your power up to half. After that, you're finished with the gather power phase, and you move on to the determine first player phase. So whoever has the most power, you give them the token. They get to choose clockwise or counterclockwise, and you move on to the doom phase. The doom phase really is where the game is won or lost. So you gain 1 doom point per controlled gate. So Cthulhu in this case moves to 2. Black Goat moves to 1. Then you can choose to pay the power to do a ritual of annihilation. If you do a ritual of annihilation, you pay the cost of whatever it is. Right now it's pointed to 5. You move it up 1, and you do this in turn order, and you get the power again equal to the number of controlled gates. So in this case, Cthulhu would go up to 4. After that, you then get 1 elder sign per, this is part of the rituals of annihilation still. So you get 1 elder sign per Great Old One that you have on the board. In this case, it's a secret, but it would have been worth 1 doom point. And you just put it aside. At any point, you can reveal your elder signs to get that many doom points. And that could be enough to do what? The next phase is determine victory or defeat. So if anybody is more than 30, which is why you might want to reveal this. If I was at 29, I might just want to say, hey guys, I'm revealing this. That pushes me to 30, okay? At that point, the game is over. If during the rotation, enough people do rituals of annihilation to push people to instant death, the game is over. So either way, the game is over at this point, and at that point, you just reveal any remaining elder signs, and you calculate your points, and that's it. That's how you determine the win. Now, again, as a reminder, if you did not get all 6 of your spell books, then you would not be eligible to win, even if you had the most doom points. So that is the core game. After this, you do the action phase. If the game hadn't ended, which it wouldn't have, then you go on to the action phase. You just keep rotating around. A couple points, pay very close attention to keywords. If an ability says it happens during the post-battle or pre-battle, even if the descriptive text implies that it always happens, it doesn't. There are abilities that always happen. They're called ongoing. An ongoing ability happens whenever it's appropriate. So some abilities might say ongoing, some abilities might say post-battle, and I see a lot of confusion with people asking, does this go off? Does this protect me? Does it say ongoing or does it say post-battle? If it says post-battle, it doesn't protect you if somebody assassinates you from some other non-battle ability. Cultists, these are acolytes, which is also cultists. There can be other cultists. Capture cultists is not capture acolytes. So not only can you capture these guys, but you can also capture anything else that says it's a cultist. Per following normal restriction rules as far as monsters and Great Old Ones. Monsters are monsters. They're, monsters you cannot recruit anywhere. You can only recruit cultists in a space where you already have a unit. If you have no units at all on the board, you can recruit a cultist anywhere you want. And with that, that is how to play Cthulhu Wars by Petersen Games. So at this point, you might want to follow some of the strategy guides. You might want to go over and check out some of the Petersen Games stuff. You can actually watch Sandy Petersen teaching how to play the game himself, or at like conventions and at his house and stuff like that. Comment down below if you have any questions. I'll happily explain it. If I made any mistakes, please post it down below right away. I might not be able to do anything about it, but I can at least address it in a comment. So with that, we have a Patreon. You can get like inside stuff. It'll help me do better stuff and get better costumes, whatever, whatever kind of stuff that, you know, helps us make better videos. I definitely want to hear from you guys. If you guys like look through, like I answer guys all the time. I answer questions. I will reach out and talk to people, talk to designers, whatever, to try to like find out the answers to your questions. And with that, bye guys. And with that, that is how to play Cthulhu Mythos.